Good morning and welcome to our webinar, Predictive Analytics Simplified. May I introduce myself? My name is Simon Lewis Head and I'm a subject matter expert on financial planning and analytics here at Codestone. I've also got my colleague Bhavin Patel, who is our solution architect, who will be demonstrating predictive analytics this morning. And finally, a very warm welcome to Dean Farrow from the solution advisory team at SAP, who is going to provide insight into how SAP customers are using predictive analytics and planning today. The SAP FP&A or financial planning analytics dedicated consulting practice. So our full focus is on the office of the CFO and everything around financial consolidation, planning, budgeting, forecasting, and analytics. And we've been doing this for over 25 years, have hundreds of successful projects. What sets us apart a little bit is our consultants are not only technical experts, but are functional experts in the Office of Finance, many of which are qualified accountants. And we are an SAP Gold Delivery Partner. If we just look on the right-hand side in the quadrant, we offer free services, ERP, data and insights, and cloud and managed services. Today, we're going to focus on SAP Analytics Cloud as a predictive planning tool. Very brief overview of SAP Analytics Cloud. It is a reporting and planning layer which sits on top a multitude of sources. Often the journey begins with finance, but it isn't just a finance tool. It's a tool for the whole enterprise, and it connects not only with SAP ERP systems and other systems like Concur or SuccessFactors, but it can be used to connect to non-SAP systems. So many of our customers are using, for example, Microsoft Dynamics or Sage as their ERP system, but on top of that they place SAP Analytics Cloud, which produces highly visual dashboards, very strong planning capabilities, and also consolidation capabilities. And this allows companies to do their strategic planning, budgets and forecasts, operational planning, for example, headcount planning or cash flow planning or stock planning, but also building management reporting packs and financial consolidation. We're going to focus today on the scenario modeling and strategic planning area and analytics capability of SAP Analytics Cloud with predictive analytics. So before we step into that, we've been having a series of webinars where we've been talking about the pitfalls of planning in Excel, or what I would say the version trap. So many of our customers have gone on a journey moving their planning and analytics solutions from Excel to SAP Analytics Cloud. And why have they done this? Well, the obvious ones straight away is the manual effort and people's time it takes to plan and report in Excel, downloading data from the ERP system and adding different sources of data and inputting data and building formulas and building spreadsheets all takes a lot of time. A lot of it is wasted effort because each forecast cycle or each budget cycle often needs the model to be reworked. And really, the big challenge for many businesses today is the volatility of the business environment, whether it be political, economical, or social changes happening in our world. So there's the need to complete scenario models, and this is where really we hit the version trap in Excel. It's a very flexible tool, very easy to create agility planning model. When I want to make a change to the budget, this horror story where, well, give me a week and I'll make the changes, flush it through my spreadsheets, reconcile and check all the results, and I'll let you know what the answer is. Businesses need agility and they need changes to be made immediately and see the impact. And finally, it is about scalability. What we're going to see today is actually predictive planning opening up the doors to allow businesses to grow, but also to expand their data sets on which they are planning. Just before I hand over to my colleagues, I just wanted to really highlight the 3 features which in predictive analytics which will help you plan for your business. First of all is the scenario management or version management, which we call in SAP Analytics Cloud. So the ability not only to create a predictive planning model, but to create multiple versions of the truth and multiple scenarios and be able to flex those drivers. The second point is very much around automation. So rather than manually creating these models and these reforecasts, we're now letting the system or artificial intelligence do the work. So we're using the predictive capabilities of SAP Analytics Cloud. And then finally, it's about collaboration and allowing and enabling the business user to create these predictive plans and share it with people across their business. So real focus today is this is predictive analytics, not for data scientists, but for the business users, people in finance departments, people in commercial departments, which want to create predictive plans and multiple versions of the truth. So at that point, I'd like to hand over to Dean Farrow from SAP, who's going to focus on why customers use predictive analytics with SAP Analytics Cloud and explain some of the use cases. Let me hand over to Dean.
So, why do customers use SAP Analytics Cloud predictive planning? Well, the first way they use it for and why they use it for is the automated capabilities that come with predictive planning. So you can create forecasts using an automated method, i.e. not manually. This saves time and effort versus you having to do it by hand. And essentially, the predictive tool is making sure that you're also getting kind of more accurate results around this. You can also automate the forecast and then make any amendments after those as well, because sometimes there's going to be costs that get added into the forecast that maybe not have been reflected in previous models and previous plans. It's also very easy to use, and it's been designed for self-service users to use as opposed for data scientists to use. And this is the idea here, to make sure that people in the business can use it so that you can then create your forecast as quickly and as easy as possible. The tool automatically uses predictive algorithms behind the scenes to look at the patterns and then predict forward what the forecast could be. So you don't have to worry about choosing a particular algorithm or choosing a particular method. And the key here is it's within the planning team you're doing the forecasting and the planning process, not as a siloed approach away from planning. The results provided are provided in an easy to understand, i.e. plain English way, not designed to give you the mathematical answer to things, but designed to give you an explanation. What's the trends in the data? What's the patterns in the data? The more likely that you are to trust the results is where you're more likely to understand the results. So if you understand it better, you're going to trust the results much more as well. And it enables you to then forecast scenarios with ease. So having an easy to use tool which is integrated into the planning process means that it's just very quick, very easy to try out different forecast scenarios, like a best case or a worst case. And with forecasting, there's lots of trial and error because you come up with the ideal forecast you want to use and you're trying out different options. Well, with the predictive planning capability, it allows you to do it very quickly and very easily and try out these different scenarios. It also allows you to kind of forecast at scale. So you're doing this forecasting not just on one particular cost center or profit center or whatever you're trying to forecast on, but you're doing across many. And it also allows you to forecast without bias. So it's not using your own human bias, it's actually looking at the patterns, the trends of the past to actually understand and then predict what the cost could be based upon those patterns. And if you were trying to deliver forecasts across, 20, 30, 40 different cost centers, have a think how long that would take versus getting predictive planning to press one button and then create those forecasts across those 20, 30 or 40 cost centers automatically for you. Now, in terms of learnings from our customers are using this and they kind of say, well, just try it out, give it a go, do it yourself. Try out what it looks like. I mean, every tool has its niches and SAC is no different to that. And of course, where you're struggling with something, this is where an expert from SAP and from Codestone can help you in that particular situation. Now, we use it across many different customers and many different use cases that those customers have. In fact, we've got over 700 SAP Analytics Cloud planning customers using this specific piece of functionality. I'll take a few use cases as well. So, an American multinational cybersecurity company automate part of their profit and loss forecasting activity, like compensations, things like that, using the predictive planning capabilities. A major American multinational company uses it for cost forecasting around the spending, again, as part of their P&L process. A multinational electric company is relying on predictive planning for their capital expenditure expense activities. And an African bank, a major African bank in multiple countries, relies on predictive planning to forecast incomes. So they've moved away from the manual way of doing this to an automated way, relying on the predictive planning capabilities to deliver this. And I'm going to pick on a specific example. Roche Pharmaceuticals, it's the world's largest biotech company employing just under 100,000 people. And their research and development, finance and IT, they automate their financial forecasting process using SAP Analytics Cloud predictive planning capability. And they connect SAP Analytics Cloud to their existing business warehouse for SAP Data Foundation. And what they're able to do is then use years of historical data that they have inside Business Warehouse to generate more accurate and a more harmonized forecast in record time versus doing this manually. And by building a new forecasting experience and streamlining their forecasting process, finance now has much more time to focus on the more valuable activities, like, for example, the harder things to forecast, things that the automated tool couldn't forecast because we didn't have enough data. Or is a bit more difficult to forecast than the general forecasting. And that means the time spends more time on those activities, more importantly, and less time on the regular activities for generating these multiple forecasts. Now, before Roche used the predictive planning capability, they had several departments within finance, each manually processing and manually doing their forecasting around spend. And they use different tools and applications to do that. Now, Roche engaged in a proof of concept where they compared SAP Analytics Cloud predictions with predictions that they created with their own data scientists using custom models through a coding language called Python. And what they're able to do was essentially create a custom Python model, one forecast for one particular department. And then they use SAP Analytics Cloud to create exactly the same forecast using the automated technique. And they compared the two. They compared SAP predictive planning with the data scientist results. And what they found was there wasn't much difference between the two in terms of what the data scientists produced versus what SAP Analytics Cloud produced. Now, the key here is that SAP Analytics Cloud could then produce multiple predictive forecasts within a click of a button and do that within minutes. The data scientists couldn't. They could only produce one within the time they were given. And if they wanted to produce multiple, yes, it was going to take extra days to produce those multiple forecasts and weeks to produce exactly the same number of forecasts that SAP Analytics Cloud produced. So what they then did was they then put SAP Analytics Cloud in production, and essentially over time they start to compare what they predict versus what actually came in terms of the forecast versus actuals, and then they're using that as an evaluation as well. But it's much simpler to use and integrated into the planning process. And this final slide just kind of illustrates the savings that they make and how easy it is for them. Essentially, they went from a status quo of manually and time-consuming process of forecasting where they're manually updating forecasts around functional spend, costs, headcount, things like that. They had a few strategic insights in terms of how that kind of measured out, and they lacked integration before. And now they have a fit for purpose forecasting solution with focus on key drivers to support their decision making, giving them more accurate forecasts, helping them to identify drivers that have the greater financial impact, and providing a one harmonized solution through SAP Analytics Cloud.
Thank you, Dean. So let's now start looking at the predictive forecasting capability within SAC in action. The first example we're looking at is a predictive forecasting for car sales by brands broken down by country. So across the columns, you can see our time or date dimension, and we're looking at our actuals. So what I've actually done is using the version management capability and tool, I've taken a copy of my actuals and created a predictive forecast category. So what we then want to do is predict our Alfa Romeo sales for 2020 for all countries. So what we can do is just highlight our cell, go to tools, go to predictive forecasting, and then the system asks for some parameters. So we want to look at this for predictive forecast. So how many periods do we want the system to predict our sales for? So we can choose as many periods as we want. So we can do 12 periods, we can do 3 periods, or we can also increase the horizon to 15 periods as an example. We could also use a day granularity if our data model was set as day, but in this case we're using it as month. The algorithm that the system would use, so we can either use a linear regression or a triple exponential smoothing. If we leave the algorithm set to automatic forecast, the system will then apply the best algorithm or the most relevant algorithm to our prediction. So if we just leave that as automatic, and the other key parameter here is the use data from. So this is now asking the system to use our sales historical trend as far back as 2015 January. We could use just the last year or the last 2 years, but as we've got a good set of data going back as far back as 2015, we'll use this. Another key thing is the more historical data the system has, the more accurate the prediction will be. So let's just click on preview. So here you can see using the last 5 years, the system has ran a predictive forecast for the next 12 periods, and this is what the output would be. So now we can also look at this from a trends perspective. So we can see here the predictive line and the actual line, and then we can see the 12 periods looking ahead. So if we click on OK, so what this will now do is bring the data into our table. We can save this back to the database, and then we can use this from a validation point of view. So for example, if we wanted to compare this to what the sales team have put as their forecast, we can then use this to run a comparative report as well. So this is one example of how we can run a predictive forecast. Another way is using a time series chart. So in this particular example, we're looking at all of our car sales for the past year in this case, in all countries where we have data. So at the moment, we only have data in France, Germany, and Spain. But let's just select France, and we want to filter this down a bit further to just look at Porsche sales for the past year. We can also look at this for all 5 years. So if I just click on all, we can see that there's peaks and troughs for regular peaks and troughs for the past 5 years. So what we can then do is apply an automatic forecast onto our time series chart. So, and it's quite simple to do, going back to Dean's point. So we can go on, so just going back here, so we can click on the chart, we go to add, and then we can apply an automatic forecast or a manual forecast. So again, using the same sort of principles as the table, let's just select automatic forecast. So again, this is now running a prediction using the historical sales trends. So we can see similar sort of peaks and troughs for the next 12 periods, but this is now using a triple exponential smoothing algorithm. So we can see here we've got in the top left hand side, we've got an upper confidence bound and a lower confidence bound with what the system predicts will be the midway point, which is 113,187 for March 2020. We can also see how accurate this forecast is. So if I just click on forecast here, we can see for France, this is 5 out of 5, and that is a very high, or the highest confidence the system could give, and that is because of the patterns of data historically that the system has used. And again, just going back to our forecast periods, we could increase or decrease the time horizon as well. So again, if we wanted to look at this just for the next quarter, we can reduce it from 12 periods to 3. So that's a couple of ways we can run a predictive forecast from a table or from a chart. But what we can also do is through what was historically called smart insights, we can run some predictive modeling and predictive scenarios. So there's 3 types of predictive scenarios that we could run. So as classification, and if I hover over that, it gives you a bit of an example as to when you would use this, a regression predictive scenario, and a time series forecast. And again, because we're going to be using a similar sort of data set, I'll be using a time series forecast where we're going to be looking at our predictive sales for the next 12 periods of cars broken down by brand and country. So what we have here is the interface for the predictive scenario or the predictive model. So when we first set this up, it will ask for the data model that we want to run the predictive forecast on. So in this case, it's called car sales. It asks for the version. So in this particular example, we're looking at our actuals, but if we created a predictive forecast version where we've copied our actuals into this version, we can use that to run our scenario on. And then for the predictive goal section, it's asking for the target account. So for example, as we're looking at sales, we've selected sales, but this could be any other target accounts that would be in the system. And we're going to do this by date, looking at the next 12 periods. And the entity section, we want the predictive forecast to be broken down by brands and by country. Another key thing is the train using. So at the moment, we've set this to all observations, but we could also have this for window of observations. And a good example of this is where we may want to exclude our COVID numbers or our data from the COVID period as there was anomalies. And we can also add influence as well. So any influences that we add that we may think could impact our sales, what would happen is the system would provide a bit more of an accurate forecast as well. But in our case, we don't have any influences. So once we've trained the system to provide this forecast, this is the initial output or the overview of the predictive forecast. So we can see here we've got a table of expected MAPE. So the lower the expected MAPE, the more accurate the system is predicting the outcome. So, for example, Renault within Spain, the sales information or the sales volumes that the system has predicted, it is quite accurate based on that MAPE. Whereas GM within UK, where it's nearly 25%, the system is less confident as to what the output is. So we can then drill down a bit more into the details. If I just click on Renault Spain, we can see a trend analysis of our forecast versus actuals for the past 5 years, and then our predictive forecast for 2020. And then we can also look at the explanation behind how the systems calculate this predictive forecast as well. And then the last thing I wanted to show you is the Just Ask feature. So this is where we can use machine learning, natural English to query the data models within SAC. So we're looking at a simple example here of a sales model. So what I want to do is for the system to bring back the actual sales in 2024 broken down by brand. Now, the benefit of this is the quick insights into your data without actually having to navigate to reports within SAC. So we can access this from the home screen. So on the top right-hand side, we've got this Just Ask icon, and this opens up this this interface. So here we can see we've got Hermanos and Sunset, which have been performing quite well from a sales perspective for 2024, whereas Jumbo's has been struggling. And then we can extend our query as well. So we want to now break this down by country and brands. So if I just add country, so here you can see it's recognizing countries as a key dimension. So you can see here now within USA, the Hermanos brand has been outperforming within USA, whereas, for example, Jumbo has been struggling within each country. And we can also run some predictive language here as well. So, for example, I want to compare my sales by store in 2024 for actuals and forecasts. So if I just click on the search, and then that gives you a comparative chart, actuals versus forecast broken down by store.
Thank you, Bhavin, for that very insightful demonstration of predictive analytics and predictive planning, and also to Dean for really highlighting the customer use cases for predictive planning. And I just want to go and wrap up and come back to our original pitfalls of planning in Excel and try and highlight, the business outcomes or business success we're looking to target with business planning. So just as Dean explained the Roche example, and I think this was a great example where they're saving time, creating only taking 2 hours to generate the 4 billion financial forecast. They've improved forecast accuracy, but also they're taking away manual data points with automation and saving time. It's obviously a very large company, but this is applicable just as much for large companies as for our small and medium enterprises. And really, these are the benefits which we think you can achieve with predictive planning and using SAP Analytics Cloud as a financial planning and analytics tool. So you can save time, automate thousands of forecast data points. So rather than keying in numbers, relying on a driver-based or predictive-based planning model, and this will allow you to make agile, faster, and better decisions. Effectively rinse and repeat. Once you have these models on SAP Analytics Cloud, you can run them multiple times, multiple scenarios, and plan and assess the volatile business environment in which you're working for. And this will lead to forecast accuracy, but really key is that it's scalable, because you've put the model onto the cloud, it's automated, it's consistent, it's repeatable, and now it's scalable. So an SME company or small medium enterprise organization which has thousands of products, customers and services, maybe, it's impossible to model revenue when you've got so many data points. This allows you now not only to deliver a planning model across many dimensions like products, services and customers, but also to grow and scale it. And the last point, this means finance own it, or the business owns the numbers. They collaborate and share across the business, and it leaves a high level of degree of staff satisfaction. All of these are key decisions to help you move from Excel into the cloud and no longer be faced with the version trap which Excel always give, allowing you to make agile, faster and better decisions for your business. And then on a very final point, I just want to address some an often common thought belief, especially from our small and medium enterprise customers, that SAP is too expensive and complex. This is just not the case. The cloud has turned this assumption on its head. SAP is a cloud provider and SAP Analytics Cloud is a SaaS solution. And SaaS solutions not only target business users, but they have a very cost-effective user subscription pricing for SMEs. With over 10,000 SAP Analytics Cloud planning customers worldwide, most of these customers are SMEs. So please do consider SAP as a cost-effective, intuitive, simple tool for planning and analysing your businesses. As a call to action, please get in touch with us, and we would love to run a discovery workshop with you to understand the current challenges with your FP&A and planning processes and introduce you to the world of SAP Analytics Cloud. So as a final note, I'd like to once again thank Dean and Bavin for the demonstrations, and also thanking you for your time in joining us today. And please do get in touch with myself or Bavin with these contact details. Thank you very much for attending and have a good day.